There are a number of things that are going to influence population growth and decline. So population ecologists are interested in the changes in population size. A significant decrease is obviously alarming, especially when it involves commercially harvested or endangered species, but a major increase may also be of concern. Of course, births and immigration add to the population size, whereas death or mortality and emigration decrease the population size. We can calculate the change in population size represented by delta n, and this formula is very intuitive because delta n is simply the overall increase or decrease due to deaths and births plus the overall change due to immigration and emigration. Therefore, the change can be written as the births minus the deaths plus the number of immigrants minus the number of emigrants. So the number of individuals added to the population minus the number that have left the population through death plus the number of immigrants that have added to the population minus the number of emigrants that have left the population. So in this particular formula, we have N1 is the number of individuals at any given time. N0 is the number of individuals at some earlier time t0. B equals the number of births. D equals the number of deaths. I equals the number of immigrants. And E equals the number of emigrants. But what we're really interested in is the rate of change. Meaning, what is the change in a population in a given time period? So the change in the population represented by delta n and the given time period represented by delta t. As an example, if the number of turtles in a marsh increased from 100 to 120 in 4 years, then the rate of change would be calculated as delta n over delta t, which equals 120 minus 100, that's the change in the population size, divided by 4, which is 4 years. So year is the unit of time we're using here. Of course, that is equal to 5. So therefore, the rate of increase in the turtle population is 5 turtles per year. And the impact of this rate depends on the actual size of the population. It might not be much of an impact for a large population of, say, 10,000 turtles, but it's going to be substantial if the population is small, like 100 turtles or something. So to account for this, we standardize the value by using proportional change or growth per individual, which equals the per capita growth rate, which is represented by the lowercase letter r. The per capita growth rate is the rate at which the population size changed per individual in the population, and we can express this mathematically with the following formula. So R equals delta n over delta t divided by n naught. So delta n is the change in population size, delta t is the period of time we're talking about, and n naught is the initial population size. So if r is greater than 0, then the population is going to be increasing. Conversely, if r is less than 0, the population is decreasing. And if r is equal to 0, then the population is stable. So if we were going to calculate the per capita growth rate for our turtle population, we would use this formula. So remember that the initial population size was 100. That makes the change in population size, or delta n, equal to 120 minus 100, which equals 20. The change in time is 4 years. So r equals 20 divided by 4, all divided by 100, which equals 0.05. Therefore, the per capita growth rate for the painted turtles in the marsh is 0.05 per year. So when there is continuous growth, whereby any individual that reaches sexual maturity can reproduce, the population can grow extremely rapidly, and that in that case, it exhibits exponential growth. To demonstrate how exponential growth works, think about the commonly asked questions of, would you rather have? When there is continuous growth, whereby an individual that reaches sexual maturity can reproduce, the population can grow extremely rapidly and exhibit exponential growth. To demonstrate how exponential growth works, think about the commonly asked question of, would you rather have $1 million today or start with 1 cent and double that amount each day for a month? Of course, the tendency is to choose A, but you would be better off financially if you chose B. And here's why. So here I've created a spreadsheet that doubles 1 cent every day for 31 days. And you can see at the end of 31 days, you would have over $10 million. You can see for the first sort of 25, 26 days, it doesn't seem to make that much difference. But by the 27th day, you start to hit the exponential part of the curve, and it increases very rapidly. In exponential growth, while the per capita growth rate remains constant, the actual number of individuals added per time unit increases as the population grows. So the new individuals added also reproduce themselves, and throughout time, more and more individuals contribute to the growing population. So of course, exponential growth cannot continue for long in nature because the number of individuals will eventually outstrip all the resources that are available to support the population. As humans, we should be very concerned about the exponential growth of the human population. Not only are we outstripping our resources, we are using excessive amounts of resources in the developed world. So although this growth might be sustainable longer if everyone lived with less, the excessive use of resources by some parts of the world, like North America and Europe, etc., exacerbates the problem. And you can see that in 1950, our growth curve hit the steep part of the curve, and it has been increasing ever since, and now is in excess of 7 billion. So some examples of exponential growth besides humans are European starlings. In North America, of course, they were first brought here by Shakespeare enthusiasts in the 19th century, and their numbers went from 120 in 1890 to over 1 million in 1940, so in less than 50 years. Another example is the cattle egret, which was a self-colonizing bird to the Americas in 1958, and it had exponential growth through to 1972 and had this growth rate up to about 0.84. The effects on population growth as a habitat fills up with individuals can be seen in this figure, which shows the logistic growth curve. So at first, the growth rate is exponential, but then it slows down as the population size reaches its carrying capacity K. So the logistic growth curve is S-shaped because it reflects two sets of processes, each related to the population size. So at first, the growth reflects only the rate at which individuals can reproduce themselves, so the curve rises steeply. The second part of the curve up here starts to level off, and that reflects the onset of additional factors that become important above a certain population size, such as decreasing availability of food and space. The carrying capacity K is the maximum number of individuals that any habitat can support. So when a population is small, resources aren't limiting, and the population can grow at or near its intrinsic growth rate of R. But as the population increases, getting closer to its carrying capacity, the worsening conditions due to crowding slow this growth rate, and the maximum number of individuals is reached at this carrying capacity. Things like predation and parasitism often keep a population size below the carrying capacity. So factors such as resources and predation are called density-dependent factors. Density-independent factors influence population size without regard for the population's density, and these factors include things like drought or a very prolonged cold period. and either factor can cause this widespread mortality, which is independent of population density.